Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast, where strength is more than a number on the bar. I'm your host, Ross Leppala, powerlifter, coach, and co-creator of the Intentional Athlete Experience. This show is for lifters, movers, and seekers who know that what happens in the gym echoes into your life. We explore how to train with purpose, live with clarity, and channel the pursuit of strength into something deep, something transformative. Each episode, we'll dive into conversation, tools, and insights that help you align your mindset, body, and spirit. Because real growth doesn't just happen under the barbell. It happens in your mind, in your breath, and in your choices. This is about more than just PRs. This is about presence, power, and progress that lasts. Welcome to the journey, my friend. Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. Hey, what's up, my friends? Welcome back to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. I'm excited to be here today. We got special guest John LaFlamme on the show. John is goals. Like I've said this before to many other people, he's got those longevity goals that I want. Like my sights for powerlifting, what I'd like to do, are targeted at him. He's been competing in the sport since 1978. He is one of the top all-time ever ranked 70-year-old powerlifters, and I want to keep doing this as long as that, because to me that's a sign that I'm doing things that take care of my well-being physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and to get there, I have to care for myself. And to me, that is fundamentally one of the most important things. The pursuit of a PR is not for me if it doesn't also prioritize my health and well-being. If I let go of my health and well-being, then that PR is for somebody else. And that's not the life I want to live. That doesn't embody anything about intentional training or intentional living. And thusly, that becomes an important part of the goal. That's what the process is for. That's huge. So I'm really excited to have a conversation with John. There's some really cool stuff and gold nuggets that I think people will find beneficial from John's experience, and probably some answers that maybe we weren't anticipating. So I'm excited to dive in. Without further ado, John, y'all. John, my friend, how are you doing today?
Great, thanks. Yourself?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, man. Really excited to dive in on this with you today. Why don't we, as we get started, why don't we just start with a quick introduction of who John LaFlamme is and where you're at in the world? What do you do? What would you like to share?
Let's see. I just turned 75 years old, so that's news, and I'm looking forward to the next 25 and see what'll happen there. Where I'm at with powerlifting right now is I'm still training pretty much mostly in my garage. I do like to go out to a local gym or even travel a little bit throughout Florida to go to different gyms just before I compete,
Yeah.
just to build the adrenaline level up, and to share in this synergy that you get from lifting with other lifters.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's right here in my and I look forward to Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. That's when I train, and I never miss a workout.
That's beautiful. Never miss a workout. Get all your training in.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you've been at this a while, and you got quite a list of accomplishments. When exactly did you get started, and what brought you into the sport of powerlifting?
I started in 1978 when I was 27 years old. And
1978,
this,
27
yeah,
years old,
yeah,
man, and you're still getting after it.
yeah. And that was in the state of Maine. I was in Augusta, Maine at the time. And I just decided at that age to get back into some type of activity. So I went to a local gym, and it was known as Water Street Gym. It was really the nickname was Dungeon because it was
Okay.
a dirt floor and a cellar underneath stores in Augusta. And it was pretty rough, but it had some pretty good lifters, and they were all interested in powerlifting at the time. So I, of course, got swept up in that and have been interested in powerlifting ever since. I competed locally and throughout New England for until 1984, and then at that point in time, powerlifting was moving towards just bench and deadlift, push pull.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess that's a problem with the squat over the years, judging depth, and I guess new federations were born because of the problems with depth. Some of the lifters, I think it was around 4 or 5. Some of the lifters, top lifters, decided to form another federation because of the strict judging.
Okay.
The USPF at the time, and I think if I remember right, there was something like 40% or more bombed in the squat in that
Whoa.
meet. So I think the federation just, got fed up with high squats and all that, and they really got tough in one meet, and that turned off a lot of lifters, and they went elsewhere, started up their own federations. So yeah, at the time, I was employed and had a young family. Um, I I felt like after a couple of years that I peaked, and as you probably know, at the time, pretty much, there was drugs were widespread throughout all the federations, and so it wasn't that exciting, and there were no records to chase, especially as an open lifter.
Mm-hmm.
So I dropped out of it, and I just trained probably 2 or 3 times a month at home over the years until 2013, and never competed in that period of time. Just every once in a while, when I felt guilty, I'd go into the garage or the cellar, wherever it was that I was living at the time, wherever I had my weight set, and I'd go in and I'd be ambitious, and I'd train for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That would be it. So I didn't do much over the next 30 years. In 2013, I took a look at the what was going on in powerlifting, and was really excited to see that they had included Masters 3 and Masters 4 in the World Championships. But I was also excited to see that the state record in New Jersey at the time was, I think it was in the high 300s, something like that, in the RPS Federation.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'd go ahead and get back into it, and I've been excited about it ever since.
Yeah. So obviously, like you've been in and around the sport you started almost 50 years ago, had a
Yeah,
little bit of break because some of the bullshit was just
yeah,
not your cup of tea, which
yeah.
I don't blame you at all. Like you got to do it because you want to. And that's one of the old points of being here today with the intentional athlete is doing things on purpose. So
Mhm.
it's great to hear that you followed that within yourself and you found your way back in 2013 and you've had quite a list of accomplishments since that time period in 2013 when you found your way back. Like, why don't you share some of your accomplishments with us to orientate some of the people before I really start getting into the weeds of the things I want to pick at?
Okay, as I mentioned, my first meet was with RPS. I think that was Gene Richlack, I think, started that federation up.
Okay.
Um, and that, that I didn't know of any other federations right close by at the time. I just saw there was something handy in New Jersey, so I entered a deadlift only as deadlift only. It was a full power meet, but they also had deadlift only. They had push pull and bench only. I entered just deadlift only with the intent of breaking the state record. And then I found out later that um, since there weren't many lifters in that age group, I was what 62 at the time, I guess. That was also an RPS world record. They gave world records in that federation, and like many federations in any contest, as you know, in USAPL and Powerlifting America, it's much more strictly watched, and the standard for the referees are much stricter.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I deadlifted 415 pounds in that first meet back, I was 62 years old. That's compared to my first meet at 27. I think it was 475 that I did. So I was pretty excited about that,
Yeah.
uh, and then kept with it.
Yeah, definitely. And now, keeping with it too, like, let's not shy around the fact that you've had several world records along the way at the highest level in the IPF. And if you look on Open Powerlifting, you are the time number 2 ranked 70-year-old lifter over 70
Mhm.
ever.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kept me going. Primarily, the records have uh, been of interest to me, and that's every meet I have the chance to set a some type of record, whether it be a regional record or state record or world record. And up until I guess 2023, world records were in play. At the end of 2023, I had planned to have shoulder surgery. So I had a total shoulder replacement in my right shoulder. And I realized that after that, wouldn't be, there wouldn't be a question of world records. I intended to drop weight at the same time, which I did. So I went from the 83 kilo weight class down to 74. I found that my squat and deadlift decreased about the same percentage as my body weight
Okay.
decrease, but my bench was down. It's still down 20% or so from where I think it should be at this
Right.
body weight.
But
Yeah.
primarily probably from the shoulder surgery more than the body weight.
Yeah, yeah. The yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned that records excite you and the pursuit of records excite you. And one of the things that I like to talk about and coach people on is, there's nothing wrong with using a record to excite you and be like an aiming point. At the same time, it does become a slippery slope, as if we chase after that record, it can be a little bit fleeting. It can mess with us a little bit in terms of like why we're actually lifting. How do you manage that slippery slope of using it as motivation, as fuel, but not necessarily like justifying your desire to train?
Well, I find in powerlifting, with the age groups, with USAPL, for example, there were 5-year age groups. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, if I felt like I was nearing a peak in that 5-year age group, there was always the next age group to keep you excited. You take a look ahead and see what the records are there. But I find in powerlifting, especially at my age, understandably very few lifters, in that age group.
Yeah.
And so it seems like, yeah, now the world records are out of reach in the IPF, but the NAPF records are still there to be gotten. Pan American records are still there. State records, not so much because, those are set based on whatever you set in a world record is going to certainly be a state record, right, in your age group. So
Yeah.
state records. But the NAPFs this last year, after um, let's see, 2024 was the first year that I lifted as a 74 kilo lifter after the shoulder operation. But I still managed to set some records in the squat and total and deadlift.
Yeah.
The Pan Ams this year, um, I didn't feel excited at all about setting bench records because that said that I was the only one who'd ever lifted in the Pan Ams in that age group and weight class. But I got them anyway. So
Yeah.
I maybe next year I'll be able to up it a little bit, even in the bench press. I don't know. Um, what keeps me going though is, after a while, after doing it now since 2013 and being used to lifting every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I find I enjoy it. It's just, I don't, if I ever, I've only been probably sick a couple of times. I had
Mm-hmm.
COVID twice. I had been vaccinated and it I was still able to get back to lifting within a few days. As a matter of fact, I said I'd never miss a workout. I didn't miss a workout the first time I got COVID because I got it as about an hour. I started feeling symptoms about an hour from coming back from Worlds in Mongolia.
Okay.
So I usually take 5 days off after a meet, and
Right.
that was over the COVID 5 days later. And
Yeah. Yeah. Luck of the
start,
timing.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's always something to keep you going. As I mentioned, I just turned 75, so now I'm into on at least Open Powerlifting keeps data as far as 5 year age groups. I'm still, I've still got some targets to hit there, and
Yeah.
yeah, so and I have to admit my main focus now is trying not to slip into the abyss, being 75 years old, I certainly see the age um, starting to affect me.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It's only a. It's not really a matter of if. It's a matter of when.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
last 4 or 5 contests, I've totaled just about the same total: 450, 450, 450 and a half, 448, and 450. So, I'm pleased to hang on. And every once in a while, one of the lifts goes up. My deadlift is starting to come back up, but the squat is really having trouble with this, hanging in there with the squat. This last contest I did 175 kilos, that's 363. It was, I think, the same as the meet before, but it was a hell of a lot harder.
Yeah.
Hell of a lot harder. So yeah, I realized that that's coming.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep myself from losing too much strength.
Yeah. So I definitely I like there's multiple things unfolding there. You look at those numbers, you're aware of those numbers. They generate excitement. With even despite those, you're talking about that you enjoy training and lifting. You found great joy in it. What
Yeah.
do you think is the quality about the process and just going to the gym and putting the effort in and doing the work? What about it is it that you enjoy? What's Can you elaborate on that?
I think I realize that even though I'm getting of an advanced age, I realize that any training can't be perfect. Your mental um, training can't be perfect. Your diet can't be perfect. So, knowing that if I can improve any one of those things, especially my mental preparation for lifting,
Hmm.
there's always a chance that I can improve or at least not lose ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's it primarily, I guess.
Yeah. But you're finding other ways to like generate wins within the variables and context that you have, even though they continue to evolve and change.
Hmm.
How do you
Yeah,
think that that's played into what you do outside of the gym?
I guess it's made me realize that we'll take golf, for example.
Hmm.
Golf is the type of thing where, like any sport, where the more time you put into it, um, the more you're going to get out of it, or I guess the better you'll feel about it. I used to play golf quite a bit, especially during that time when I wasn't powerlifting or competing in powerlifting, and spend a lot of time, and I got fairly decent at golf. And now golf is awful, partly because I can't make a full turn with my shoulders the way they are.
Okay.
But yeah, I realize that anything you do in life, be it work or golf or powerlifting, that the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it, and the
Yeah.
more you're going to enjoy it, I think.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned too as well that like you can feel some of the effects of aging creeping into the lifting. What about the other way around? Do you feel the benefits of the lifting keeping the decline in aging at bay?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even though I'm not gaining, anymore in the squat. The squat was probably one thing, the one lift I kept making gains on, even though I was, in my 60s and then my 70s and now 75. I was making gains on until I would say 2023.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's because everybody does a lot of walking, and as opposed to, the bench press where you're not necessarily using your upper body that much unless you're powerlifting or the deadlift. But yeah, the squat I found that was the most exciting part of it. My squat when I first started was probably my weakest lift. Deadlift was my best, and bench has always been an issue for me. It's never been very good at all, but I've been competitive in the squat only because I've worked it to death over the last, you know, at least since 2013. I've worked it a lot and got so that it was my best lift. I used to hate squats. Now I love it. I'd rather do squats than bench or dead, and that's only because I got better at it. And and I get a big kick out of holding a squat world record that's still a world record with the legs that I've got. And you've seen my legs. They're probably the skinniest legs in the sport, or at least the skinniest legs to have squatted a world record, an age group world record.
Yeah, maybe some you're just a little bit longer limbed in the legs, longer femur, I suppose.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, do you think I suspect that there's something else, you say that you got good at squatting and that changed the relationship of like not liking it. But I suspect that there's other things at play there that create that shift of, hey, I don't really like this lift to you becoming good at it and now you like it. There's other what else is at play there for you that you do that you found that love and enjoyment for squat?
First, I think the reason I hated it is because it was hard. I mean, it just, doing sets of 10 or whatever with squats is not fun or wasn't fun back then.
No, it
And
never is. Even once you're good at it, it's still not fun to do more than do that many
yeah,
reps.
yeah. And then it got to the point where at first, and right until I would say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I really enjoyed doing deadlifts, even though they were hard, but I felt that I still felt I was improving, and I was not at world record strength in the deadlift, but I was close,
Hmm.
and so that kept the excitement up. And but then squats, like I said, after I got good at them and started doing some squat variations, like box squats and pin squats and a whole number of things, after you see the target as being in reach, then it's exciting to get back in there and see if you've made any progress from the week before.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But I think one of the things I like to think about with that is like you're seeing your intentional efforts cultivating a skill that is elevating and getting better.
Mhm.
And like that's one of the things that I like to promote to people. Like at the end of the day, there isn't going to be perfection, as you alluded to a couple of minutes ago. We won't be perfect, but is there something we can get just a little bit better at?
Mhm.
And I think that's part of what that joy comes from is like, yes, if I try this just a little bit more, I can get just a little bit better and a little bit better. And there's improvement there. And there's lots of ways to look at that objectively and subjectively that doesn't necessarily always have to put more weight on the bar, even though like that's one of our primary measures. There's other ways and forms in which those qualities can be observed.
I guess another driver is when I look back at what I was doing when I first started lifting. In my first meet, I squatted 350 and I weighed about 160, 161.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I just in 2023, when I dropped back to the that weight class, and actually 1 kilo less than that weight class, because that was a 75 kilo weight class. Now it's 74 in the IPF. I found that my I was squatting. Let's see, the national record, which I hold in that age group, is 375. So, looking back at what I was doing in my first meet at the same body weight, but being, 50 years older, or close to 50 years older, that's pretty exciting. So, things like that.
Yeah.
They're not only like state records, but personal records. I like to think that I'm able to beat my younger self, still able to do that. So that type
Yeah.
of thing is exciting. Yeah.
Do you have kids and grandkids?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I have two grandsons. I have a son and a daughter.
How old
Yeah.
are they?
My grandsons are 21 and 24,
Yeah.
or 20, soon to be 25. Yeah.
What do
21 and
they
20.
what do they think about the fact that grandpa can still kick their ass?
Uh, As a matter of fact, just recently I challenged him. I mentioned having skinny legs, and it used to be back when they were really little kids. My son and they would call me Pepe, which is grandfather in
Hmm.
French, chicken legs, right?
Okay.
Uh, so now I've challenged both the grandsons to they they still tease me about that a little bit. So I challenged both of them to a double body weight squat contest for reps.
Hey.
And and my the oldest grandson has accepted, but I'm not too worried because I don't see him going into the gym very much. So uh, I think I'll be able to take him still.
Oh
Give him a
man.
year, he probably would beat me, but not right now.
Well, I look forward to hearing how that turns out for you. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Oh, good luck with the DOMs after that.
Yeah. I find I don't really I usually recover pretty well. The only time I really feel sore is after a contest. I'll be sore in the lower
Hmm.
back. That's about it. But
Interesting.
with workouts, um, I try to follow something that I read a while back, which was trying to think of the name of the book. It was something nutrition, and it was written back in the early 2000s. And they were claiming that the best recovery is to get a certain amount of whey protein within 45 minutes of your workout, and a certain amount or twice the amount in grams in carbohydrate. Um, and so I've been doing that all along, and that seems to work for me. So
Is that by
maybe I'm,
chance the nutrient timing system?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
I read that
yeah,
book as well. Yeah. So you think that's one of the big keys to your recovery is not just a specific amount of nutrients as far as proteins and carbs, but having them at a specific time.
yeah. I think so. I think so. Now maybe I'm not training as hard as I should, Ross, but yeah, I found that I rarely get sore a few days after training. It'd be only after a meet.
Yeah. You know, the thing I don't get too terribly sore from training as long as like if I do a stimulus that's really wild and off the wall that I haven't done in a long time, either like a protocol, if I go from high volume to a single, like that'll wreck me. Whereas if I go, am I doing singles and all of a sudden I do something super reppy, I'll get sore from that or an exercise that I haven't done in a while. But I recover really quickly from it. And I've observed similar things as far as the timing of those nutrients helping with the recovery. Um, but one of the things that I noticed as I age, and I wonder if you've observed a similar occurrence, my tolerance for physical labor is the thing that seems to be declining more than my tolerance for training. Like when I like to do home projects on the weekends, and we got a pretty nice sized garden and a bunch of different things like that. And I find when I get too ambitious on the home projects and they're physical, I feel the effects of those more than I feel the effects of training. Have you experienced anything similar to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to pass up afternoon naps, and I have certainly lost a lot of energy at my age, certainly. Yeah. I mean, I used to go out and uh, I was thinking of this the other day. I used to go out and play golf, and we'd play 36 holes, my brother-in-law and I, and think nothing of it. And we carried our bags at the time,
Yeah.
and I'll go out and play 9 holes on an executive course, and that's enough.
With the golf cart. Yeah,
Exactly.
okay, yeah, with a golf cart. Yeah, that's definitely
Yeah,
it's a difference. I
yeah.
I definitely it's interesting. It's been kind of, I guess, odd for lack of a better word to observe like the way my body responds to that stuff. And it's like, man, I can go have a great session and do a ton of volume and just smash it and hit it hard and be a little sore the next day and fine. But man, I work too hard at home on a Saturday, and man, like Sunday, it's like, well, I guess I'm not doing anything today if I want to be worth a crap on Monday, and I'll still feel it on Monday sometimes. It's like, this is in the way. I got stuff to do. So, what would you say are some of the keys to your longevity? Like you found the sport 50 years ago. Sure, you had a bit of hiatus through the middle there for a bit, but you're still going at it and going at it strong. And you alluded to there's not a lot of people in those divisions and classes for likely aging reasons. So what do you think it is that you do that allows you to continue in this sport?
Probably mostly avoiding injury, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I tried to even when I was with RTS and with the strength guys, I pretty much um, controlled the exercises. So if it called for, let's say, a couple of down sets after 3 work sets, I might be able to I get through the 3 work sets and maybe one down set. And then I realized that my hips were really burning or whatever, and I was on the verge of injury. And getting those, fortunately, I didn't get injured seriously, but I always seem to have just before a meet these little bothersome injuries, where you think, geez, I hope I can squat at the meet, because I've got this pain in the hip joint or
Yeah.
whatever. I find that I always seem to be okay at the meet, and I attribute that to being able to back off when I feel like I'm doing too much in that work set.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge. I like that's such a way I think for because there's definitely a prevailing attitude in a lot of sports and athletics, not just powerlifting, but this idea of more is better. And that's not necessarily true. More is more, better is better. There's a difference. And a couple of years back when I was dealing with a hip injury, it wasn't super painful, but it was nagging and it wouldn't go away. I couldn't figure out how to get it to go away. I tried a whole lot of different stuff. And one of the things that really became pivotal for me when I finally started climbing out of that and actually being fully healthy again was doing that very thing, was allowing myself the freedom that, hey, just because it's written down in the training program doesn't mean that I should do it right now. And trusting myself and my intuition that when I would get to the point in the training that if I started to have that thought like, oh man, is one more set going to be helpful for me? Not doing it. At the second I ask that question and start thinking that thought, the answer is no, it is not more beneficial for you to do it. Just drop it. And that meant when I first gave myself that permission that a lot of times my deadlift, I would just warm it up and I'd get to my last warm up and it'd be like, no, don't keep going. And I would be okay. And that happened for like the first 5 weeks. I wasn't getting much of the work in. I wasn't getting much of the work in. And then I finally started getting more of the work in and more of the work in. And then it became more standard that I was getting the intended work in. But I think that's huge to point out that we have to remind ourselves as lifters that the program is written under the premise that we're good and healthy, pretty much all the time. And there's going to be times where we butt up against that recovery, especially as we're getting older. And we need to just make the call to drop some of the sets and prioritize health and recovery. And one of the places I've been trying to articulate that and drive that home for lifters is that, yes, our primary goal, one of our number one primary goals in our sport as powerlifters, is to PR and put 5 more pounds in the bar. Like that's our primary aiming point. However, we cannot sacrifice our health and well-being for that PR, because the way I look at it is the pursuit of PR where we forego our health and well-being isn't a PR for you. It's a PR for somebody else on the internet to hit that like button.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You
And
have, how did you arrive at that point for yourself where you started to be like, oh, no, we're not going to do that today?
well, I realized in that specific time frame that if I was going to injure myself more than what I felt at the time, that I wouldn't be able to compete, you know. So I didn't want to take a chance on that. So I intentionally self-regulate the training program and to the point where I felt comfortable with it, and it's always worked for me. As you know, if you especially in the M3, M4 age groups, um, you don't really see people in those groups except for people like Dave Ricks or whatever that are there 1 year and the next and the next and the next and the next, you know. Most of them go to Worlds for 1 year and then you never see them again. And most of the lifters that I started with, I was back in Maine 3 or 4 years ago, and I was asking the guy that ran that Water Street gym about this lifter and that lifter and whoever, and almost to a person that I asked about, he's no longer with us, you know, or he
Yeah.
got hurt and he's no longer lifting. In the retirement community that I'm in, which is huge. There's 165,000 people here. So you can imagine the gyms are packed. But I can't tell you how many, probably at least 50 people I've met that used to lift, but they can't because of some type of injury, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the key, I think, to longevity is and to succeeding at it, sure, you've got to have discipline. You've got to be there. Like I said, you know, you can't miss workouts. You just got to keep plugging. But you also have to be careful not to get hurt.
Yeah. 100%. So, what would you say to a younger person that might be listening to this? How do we get the younger crowd in our sport to understand the longevity component? In particular, like a young person that's ambitious and they're talented and they're strong and they really want to get after it. Yes, that's important. We do want to get after it. This isn't an argument for complacency. I despise complacency. And at the same time, like denying the idea of having the longevity, sacrificing the longevity for right now because oh well I might not ever be there again, so I'm gonna push hard, I'm gonna suck it up, and I'm gonna push through it. How do we get away from some of that toxicity? How do we prioritize the fact that this is something that longevity matters more than the glory?
Some of the reasons why I think young lifters don't continue with the sport is because they do get injured. And I think they get injured because they're going for a max attempt almost every workout, you know? So I think the that's planned where you're working up to maybe 80% or whatever, you know, an RPE of 8, let's say,
Hmm.
um, and not trying maxes every week or even every month, not trying a max until you get on the platform, you know.
Yeah.
I think that would reduce injuries a lot and keep a lot more people in the sport. The other thing is going into a meet with the attitude that, you know, this is what I've done in the gym, but I think I can do, you know, I know I'm going to do 20 pounds more in the on the platform. You know, how many people bomb out because, especially first time lifters, how many
Yeah.
people bomb out because of that? I come away from a meet feeling energized if I think that I've hit my absolute max on the day, and if my absolute max on the day turns out to be not what I expected because of training, then so be it. You know, maybe I didn't diet properly, or maybe I didn't recover properly, but I always feel better if I'm doing 9 for 9, regardless of the total. And if I go in there and miss lifts because I was too ambitious, you know,
I
like,
agree. I have a similar experience, and it it's interesting too because one of the meets that kind of taught me that was I had a meet where I PR'd my squat and PR'd my bench press, and then I missed my deadlift, and I I allowed like that's where I ended because I ended on that miss. Like that's what carried forward, and not I wasn't pleasant to be around after that, and that definitely was a cue that maybe I need to change some things for myself because I ought to be able to enjoy that squat and bench PR and not be
right.
distraught over missing that deadlift. So I definitely agree there. And what's interesting too, when I look up your results on open powerlifting, you got a you got a crap ton of meets under your belt. I don't even want to try and count all these. This looks like you probably got like 50 meets or better under your belt. Do you know exactly how many?
No, I don't exactly, but it's around that. Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
it's around that. What I've been trying to do is, I really think that you can't take even more than 5 or 6 days layoff after a meet, or else you're going to be, taking a while to get back to where you were,
Yeah.
strength wise. So I think, especially when you get into your 60s and 70s, that if you expect to keep your testosterone levels up legally, then you're going to do it with heavy resistance training and
Yeah.
steady heavy resistance training, not taking a month or two off. I think taking the 3 months off after having to take the 3 months off after the shoulder surgery affected my other lifts too. Up until then, it'd been since 2013 that I competed most of the time. Every 3 months, I'd compete, so just to keep sharp, I think. And after the shoulder surgery, I couldn't touch anything to do with bench press at all. I was able to do some leg presses and nothing in the deadlift. So, it was 3 months before I got back at those things. And I think overall that affected my strength as much as my total, as much as the shoulder surgery did.
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. I appreciate the attitude as well about like finding where you're at in the day and making lifts and what that means. And like you really demonstrate that again, looking at your results on open powerlifting. Most of the time, you make every single one of your lifts. There are very few misses between like the 2013 time period and now. Uh, like, I'd be surprised if you averaged a miss lift a year. It seems like with how many meets are on there and how many meets you've gone 9 for 9. Like, it's impressive. What what do you what is for you, because I think that means differently for different people. And, some people will say, oh, if you always go 9 for 9, you're not pushing the edge. And, well, you don't always go 9 for 9, but you go 9 for 9 a lot of times. What does that represent for you?
It represents that am paying attention in my training, and I know what I did the cycle before and the cycle before that, and I know what I'm doing here. I still use the RTS, yes, to log my workouts and to plan my workouts.
Yeah.
And so I know what I did the cycle before, like I said, and I know where I am now, and that pretty much tells me what I should be opening with and what I think I can get. And then after my second squat, then I know pretty much whether there's 2.5 kilos left or 10 kilos left. Um, I can I think I can feel it pretty well. So the last couple of meets, not only was it, I guess it was just the last meet that was 9 for 9. Not only did I get 9 for 9, but I don't think I could have got an extra ounce out of any one of the lifts, especially the squat. I bet I was at the sticking point for 4 seconds
Oh,
before
man.
started to move.
Like those are the meets that I think a lot of us are after is going 9 for 9 and being able to look back and know that every one of those attempts was the the limit. Like that's definitely the target.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to highlight your very first sentence from that on what 9 for 9 represents to you is that you're paying attention, because I think a lot of people get lost in the emotional hype of the meet and they're like, oh, well, I peaked and I tapered, so I should be supercharged and have this rebound effect and go beyond what I thought I had on the because of training. And it's like, not necessarily. That's not necessarily true. So I really like that you're paying attention to where your capacity is at, and that's where you're going to play for the day. Huge.
Like I
Well,
said, nine always feels better than 8 for 9. Even if I got, records in all of them, I would still walk away feeling a lot happier that not only did I do the meat prep properly, but on meat day, I made the right choices
yeah.
on temps.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I agree. And that's definitely, one of the things that I also look at with the idea of going 9 for 9 is just realizing that I know I'm going to push myself. I know I'm going to be at the edge, but can I be within respect of that edge and not going beyond it? Because to me, that's I feel like it's displaying a skill, and it's important to me. And I, so yeah, I like being able to do that.
I'm sure you've seen lifters that I know, I'm not going to name any names, but I know one lifter in particular that every meet they're going for a PR in whatever lift that they're approaching, squat, bench, deadlift. I guess to them they don't get anything out of the meet unless they get a PR in something, and but more often than not they miss that or third attempt, and I'm sure they don't go home happy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not fun. It can't be fun. Why put yourself in that position where you're not having fun with it?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. And obviously, we're going to have some bad meets here and there. We're going to miss some lifts here and there. That's going to happen. But if it happens on a regular, probably doing something wrong that needs to be adjusted.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, John, I definitely want to be mindful of your time. I appreciate you chatting with me today. I want to leave you with one last final question, or open-ended question rather. If there's any closing words of wisdom that you would like to depart on that are, continued importance of like what this sport can do for people, particularly what it can do for them when we like prioritize our health and well-being for that longevity component.
I guess what I would, I knew what I was going to say when you started the question, and I got sidetracked in my mind. Was going to answer something else. Let's see. Yeah, if you'll give me a few seconds, I'll come up with it. Um, oh, yeah, yeah. Um, I highly recommend that any lifter of any ability, any level of experience, um, get professional training
Mm,
and programming. I
yeah,
highly recommend that. Yeah, you can say that, I'm not uh, with a particular company right now, and I'm doing my own programming, but I was with RTS, as you know, for about 5 years.
yeah,
And then when I was having trouble with my deadlift was starting to go the other way, I went with the strength guys for a year, and that was just before I had the shoulder surgery. But in both cases, I attribute my success to going with professional programming. Yeah, there's no question. I think people like are just amazing. Mark, Rob,
yeah,
um, they know what works and what doesn't, and um, left to yourself to try to experiment with this program or that program, um, you're probably going to not get the most out of your body, out of your potential. So
Yeah.
I really highly recommend getting programming from somebody that is really good.
Yeah.
It's money spent.
I obviously as a powerlifting coach, I agree wholeheartedly, but even like from an athlete perspective, I agree wholeheartedly. And it's just there's very few people who can self coach really well and really effectively. And I know,
Mhm.
like for myself, reiterating or highlighting this, uh, Mike wrote my training for a very long time. Before that, Matt Gary wrote some of my training. And then I wanted to explore some self coaching, and I went off on my own. There was some things that I needed to learn in that process, and primarily that was when I discovered the idea of letting myself skip training sets. But now I have John. Now I'm working with John Garofano, another RTS coach, to write my training. And like the biggest thing, it, there's just there's things that a second pair of eyes, a unbiased pair of eyes, and somebody who's not emotionally attached to the training session in and of itself is going to see things in a different, oftentimes more clearer light in terms of what you need to continue progressing.
Mhm.
And like I totally get that because I've been through that. And that was like, when I started talking with John out loud, I'm like, man, I just feel like I'm not quite getting my capacity. I feel like I have more strength to display, but I'm not quite getting the recipe right. And
Mhm.
as I said that out loud, I'm like, oh, I gotta hand over my training to somebody. I can't keep doing this because that's part of it. There's something I'm not seeing because I have an attachment. I have a connection to the athlete that I can't fully separate coach and athlete, and that's huge.
Yeah, I think the only reason I've been successful after the programming that I was getting is that I really pretty much am doing some of the same stuff. As a matter of fact, quite often I'll go back and look at a particular period in time when something was working right, and I feel now that I'm fighting a little bit. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm running through the programming that worked for me pretty well in 2021.
Yeah,
I've made some tweaks because I know that certain other things have worked even better for me. But
yeah,
I that's the backbone is the programming that I got back then.
fantastic,
And I
fantastic.
still use that app, like I said, and
Yeah,
that's worked well for me.
yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear
Even
that that's still working well for you.
yeah, yeah, it is for sure.
Yeah. Awesome, John. Well, I super appreciate you joining me here today. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you. I suppose Texas Masters Nationals.
Yeah, yeah. You'll be there, I'm sure.
That's the plan.
Okay, very good.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you there.
Well, thanks, Ross. I appreciate it.